form business. Sounds tricky. In my HTML, I'm going to get rid of everything except the H1. And my script tag, of course. And let's make a form. You'll never guess what tag that is. Form. Now notice my image expansion here wants to put an action attribute on there. The action attribute tells it what URL to submit the form to. We're not really submitting it anywhere. So I'm just going to get rid of that attribute altogether. Just have form. But more on that in a sec. And we want an input in there of type text. If I make an input, type equals text, that's the default, but we do want to explicitly say type equals text. And we can go ahead and give it a name too. Spell name. We should probably have a submit button. I'll make a button that says add. Buttons, like inputs, can have a type. We will say type equals submit. If a button is located inside a form, that is the default, but we want to be explicit. Button type equals submit. Now you may have noticed, if you did any research on this or if you've done this before, that there's also such a thing as an input type submit, in which case you give it a value of what you want the thing to say. Check it out in the browser. I see both buttons, right? I like button better. For one thing, with an input type submit, you can only give it text here. With a button, it actually has text content or inner HTML or whatever. It has contents. There's a closing tag, so you can put something in there. Notice input is an empty element. There is no closing tag. It doesn't make any sense. See, it auto-completes something else. It makes so little sense to do this. So, with a button, you can put whatever you want in between here. You can put images. You could put whatever you want. We just have simple text, but now we have a form. Now what should happen when we do that? The whole updating it with the text I typed, that sounds too hard right now. Let's just make it do anything when the form submits. Let's just make it do the same thing it's doing now. But instead of clicking that button that isn't even on the page anymore, we're going to have it happen when we submit the form. So instead of listening for a button to be clicked, we are listening for a form to be submitted. So let's grab the form from the page. I'll call it form. Our query selector will just be form. And we are not listening for something to happen to the button. We're listening for something to happen to the form. And we're not listening for it to be clicked. We're listening for it to be submitted. But change heading, still an okay thing for it to do. If I try it out right now, nothing happened and I got an error. And it moved the page. All kinds of bad stuff happened. Look at that. Did you see the red thing real quick? Type error. Uncut type error. Uncut type error cannot. What was it? Uncut type error cannot set property. Gosh, I can't even read the thing. It happened so fast. Anybody ever used a debugger that has breakpoints? Wouldn't it be cool if we could add breakpoints here? It would. Too bad. No, we can do it. We can totally do it. With the word debugger. Let's stick debugger in here. Well, you told me that worked, you filthy liar. The whole page is refreshing before I can even get to that line. I better put it right inside change heading. I want to know what's going on inside change heading. I'm going to put a debugger right here. Let's see what happens. Refresh. There we go. Paused in debugger. It opens up the sources tag, or a sources tab, and I see that I am right here inside change heading. It shows me what my local variables are. This. What's that? I mean this. We'll probably want to learn about this thing sooner or later. But for right now, my console puts me right inside change heading. So maybe if I just sneak along, what's this do? Does that step over? Step over next function call. I don't want to do that. Can I step one thing at a time? What's this say? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Step into step. Let's just step. One thing at a time. See if I can ever get that error. Oh. Ah, dang it. Where'd it go? Well, hey, I'm in here. Maybe I can just run this. So there's my error. Cannot set property text content of null. Don't know what that means? Break it down. Cannot set property text content of null. So I'm trying to set text content of null. So that means whatever comes before text content is null. So what's null? Document.querySelector p.special, because p.special isn't on the dang page anymore now, is it? No. So that's our error message. So let's take out debugger. Let's change p.special to h1. Then everything should be great. Saw it. Homework didn't say change it and stay on the same page. Now did it? Ship it. We're done. Feature complete. No, we're not going to do that. Well, the customer didn't ask for that. No, we're not doing that. We're going to fix it. It changed. So what's happening here? Let's type something in there like fireball. Notice the URL changed. Index.html spell name equals fireball. So the form actually submitted. For some events, like clicking on a link or submitting a form, there's actually default behavior in the browser. For others, like clicking a random button that isn't part of a form, there's no default behavior. You can make it do whatever you want it to do, and it's not going to do anything else either. With something with a default action, though, it's going to still perform the default action unless you tell it not to. Let's put that debugger back in there. Let's see what we can do. All right, so we are now inside change heading. We're not the ones who called change heading, right? We didn't put open close parens here. JavaScript did that itself whenever the thing got submitted, right? They're the ones who actually invoked the dang function. And here's an interesting thing about JavaScript. Interesting slash, let you form your own opinion. But it doesn't enforce the number of arguments that you pass to a function. You can always pass more than it asks for, and you can always pass too few. JavaScript doesn't care. Now, you could write your function in such a way that it looks to see if you did the wrong thing and then return an error message, but JavaScript isn't going to do that for you. There's no checking the arguments automatically. My point being, we didn't put any arguments in the list up here, right? But JavaScript calls this the way it's going to call it. So I'm curious whether it passed in any arguments. We can always find that out from inside the function, which is where I am. Remember, my console is effectively on line 4 here. By calling arguments. And that tells me, that gives me this array-like thing, which is called arguments. And I see item 0 here is an event. So arguments, square bracket 0, event. So the event, the submission, seems to actually be some kind of object. I see type submit here. All kinds of interesting stuff here. Target, the target is form. That could be interesting someday. Default prevented false. So we said there's default behavior on a form, right? By default, it's going to actually submit to some page. It's going to be whatever that action attribute is set to, or if it's set to nothing, it's going to be the current page, which effectively refreshes the page. And it happens very fast. Default prevented false. We want that to be true. So we want to find a method that will do that for us. So a command, we can tell the form to do that. So if you wanted to tell it, if you wanted to rephrase default prevented as a verb, what would you tell it? Prevent default. Let's see. So I have this event thing here, saved to arguments, square bracket 0, dot prevent default. Is that a function? Sure is. Let's unpause our debugger. Didn't move. So now we just need to do that in our actual code. So our function is receiving an argument whether we ask for it or not. So let's ask for it. I'll just call it EV. I don't call it E because I use that for error a lot, but I don't spell out event either. Everyone knows. So we better do it first thing. Let's try it. Let's see what happens if we don't. If I change it, then say ev.preventDefault. No, it caught it in time that time. We got lucky. Better make it the very first thing we do inside here. There we go. Event.preventDefault. So again, that argument's going to get passed in automatically by JavaScript. But if we give it a name in the argument list, then we can use it. Yeah.
So wait, what is
EV is that event object that I was playing around with in the console. So we're not the ones calling change heading, right? We didn't do this. But when JavaScript does do that internally, it passes in an event object as an argument automatically. It's not a default value. It is, so when we add the event listener, we're listening for a specific event, right? And that event actually has a representation as an object. So when the submission occurs, it's going to pass that object as an argument to whatever you told it here. So change heading will receive that thing as its argument. And then we can do stuff with it. Things like prevent default, but there's more we can do to it, and there's more we will do to it. Questions about this so far? Anybody do it a different way? Cool. All right. Git add, git commit. This commit will update heading when form is submitted. That's what this commit really does, that it didn't do before. And now it's on GitHub.